my day was a living hell. Every single day I had to reconcile data from 10 different banks that were using 10 different protocols, 10 different formats. And then you had the training venues, you have the custodians, everything was always different and always problematic. The beauty of blockchain is and specifically the Bitcoin blockchain that is the most secure one, is everyone is looking at the very same data, right? There is no way that, if you are in sync with your node, you are looking at a different data set.
Hello, all, and welcome to the first episode of the Axal Podcast, Talking Intentionally. We hope to be the leading podcast on everything related to autonomous agents, or intents and solvers as we call them in Web3. While this is our first episode, we're actually going to mark it as episode 0 of the show. This is because more than anything, we want to introduce you guys to the Axal team, and specifically me, Cozy, who's the host and leads growth at Axal. Prior to joining Axal, I worked in both traditional finance, journalism, and had a sick YouTube podcast where I interviewed people like John McAfee, the CIA director David Petraeus, and other Web3 characters. For episode 0 of the podcast, I'm releasing an older interview I did back in 2022 with Paolo Ardoino, the CEO of Tether. Keep in mind, podcast guests' opinions aren't necessarily our opinions. More than anything, the Axal team believes that whether you're in the Bitcoin maxi camp or the meme coin degen camp, in Web3, we all win together. So without further ado, welcome to episode 0 of the Axal Podcast.
Well, Paolo, good to see you again. I guess the first thing I'd like to talk about is, with everything that's happened with FTX's fallout, I know Tether had played a role with it, and I know that Sam Bankman-Fried reached out to you guys. So could you talk me through what it was like when you heard about FTX falling apart? And did Sam Bankman-Fried reach out to the Tether team?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Jacob, for having me again. So definitely what happened with FTX has been a dramatic event for the entire industry. With us personally, as a team, as a company, we didn't have any exposure to FTX or Alameda. Alameda was publicly a customer of Tether, but apart of losing a customer, we didn't have any impact. I think that speaks really highly about our resilience in terms of company, in terms of business model. If you see nowadays, even after the FTX Alameda debacle, Tether was able to add to its monetary base. Other traders, other hedge funds stepped into taking profit from managing issuances or redemptions, because it's normal, right? It's just pure market demand, right? There is as Tether has become over years a cornerstone of the both the crypto markets, but also of being the dollar for all the emerging markets. And for that reason, there is always a lot of demand, and if there is demand, the price of the secondary markets goes up, and then other traders, other market makers, other hedge funds step in, and they issue Tether, and they sell Tether on the secondary markets. On the other side, they are happy to redeem Tethers when they can make a few basis points when there is a downward pressure. Just this as a little bit of introduction on why we feel that in terms of Tether success story, FTX and Alameda won't affect really much. We have been always, of course, being a customer. We have been having a good relationship with Alameda, as we do have with all our customers. It has become publicly known that FTX was looking for and seeking for investments. In our case, it happened before the exchange publicly blew up, and we didn't know the size of the issue. We didn't know when that happened, that the issue was that problematic to cause the halt of the operations and the bankruptcy of FTX. So it was a really brief discussion in our case, and we learned from Twitter, in the following days, as I believe anyone else in the industry, the depth of the issue that they had in reality.
So did Sam Bankman-Fried and the FTX team reach out specifically to Tether after the public found out that there wasn't solvency at
No.
FTX?
No, they reached out before, and we from then onwards, we just learn everything through Twitter and the newspapers.
And what was your perspective of an FTX prior to its collapse? Did you have a suspicion of it?
No, I mean, I think that sometimes you see things that are a little bit weird. At least we are also a leading company. We are really on top of our numbers. So I think that honestly, no one could have predicted the size of the issue. So sometimes I think I end up wondering why certain things were looking too good to be true. In FTX, but aside that, you cannot consider this a claim of or like having a crystal ball and to understand exactly what was going on. I think no one was able to, even investors, right, where all the VCs, investors, everyone put money in FTX, and no one had a clue actually.
Yeah. Well, I think kind of on that note, I don't know if you got a chance to read Sequoia's essay on, FTX, but there's a partner there who the reason why he was so compelled to invest in FTX is they didn't really respect building the industry itself, but they saw that there was a large transaction volume and people were spending a lot of money, speculating on crypto assets. And they realized that, the way to play crypto for them was to capitalize on people spending money rather than investing in building an ecosystem. Do you think that kind of mindset, the one where a lot of VCs have, not necessarily them, but in that article, it was them, who, the perspective is we want to capitalize on these people who are just gambling and losing their money rather than building something. I know there are certain projects in crypto that people are trying to build infrastructure. So do you think that mindset's going to go away after the fall of FTX?
So I think that, almost you answered for myself, right? So you elaborated this mindset as extremely saddening in a way, right? So trying to capitalize for a VC that capitalize on gambling, that capitalize on other people losing money, I think is extremely worrying in terms of human beings. But I don't think it will go away. That is, crypto is not the only industry where that happens, right? So the world of VCs is a cutthroat world full of people trying to take to speculate on trends and on quick ways to make money, no matter what. We as a company like Tether, we consider ourselves different, right? We invest in projects, but we do invest in projects that we believe can make an actual change. You might have been following our investments, like our actually daily activity is building for adoption, not just for Tether, for Bitcoin adoption, and building tools like Kit, like Hole Punch, that are tools on top of which Tether cannot even make money. But we believe that being lucky in the industry, because we started early, right? So we have the luck of being started in 2012, then 2014 with Tether. We believe that this industry has a lot to give, and so there are VCs that understand this. There are many VCs that understand actually that there is an opportunity to create something that could be considered greater good. And if we stop to try to make every single time a quick buck, I mean, the meaning of this entire industry is basically vanished.
Well, so kind of on that note, what would be the greater meaning that you see for crypto? Because I think that's something that's happened post the fall of FTX, in large part because he presented himself as this very good person and he wanted to make a lot of money to give it away. I think people in crypto, the idea of building good things in crypto is now not seen by the general public. So what is the greater purpose for you, someone who is spending his career in crypto, about the space, and why do you want to dedicate your life to it?
Well, I consider myself an activist, and everyone in our company, I feel like they are sharing the same feeling. Um, Bitcoin started in 2008. Well, the white paper was 2008, and the first block was mined on January 3rd, 2009. And that first block had reference to the 2007-2008 financial crisis. I believe that the world in which we are living, that is a world that is well represented by Davos in a way, right? So if you think about Davos, is the powerful people in the world that are all together to try to understand how to, rule with their iron fist is kind of worrying, and is a future that no one wants. And that future is even more difficult because it's already been lived by people living in emerging markets in developing countries, where the national currency, their national currency is devaluating by the day. I think that over 18 months in Turkey, you had a 120% loss of compound loss over compared to the dollar. So that was, put yourself in the shoes of someone that trying to save money in Turkish liras and trying to save for sending their children in other country to study, to have to find fortune. As I'm Italian, as my grandparents were dreaming, right? So that is not possible anymore. And mostly, I'm thinking also to South America, mostly is due to insane monetary policies that have been imposed also by foreign countries. It's clear that the currencies are nowadays used more and more as a weapon. Yeah. And so Bitcoin is actually a solution to that, or could be a solution to that. Bitcoin is something that, for once, there's no way to make money on Bitcoin apart, of course, you can buy and hold, but it's not pre-mined, cannot be inflated, is not subject to control, is the perfect money. So with Bitcoin, you can become wealthier if you actually are pushing for adoption, if you are actually proposing it as a way to, in fact, move money from the national currencies and from the fiat currencies into Bitcoin, because it's a common good. It's something that anyone can use, anyone can hold on, can save, and you don't need a bank to save Bitcoins, right? It's a lifeline for many families all around the world. So I think that the reason to exist of Bitcoin and Tether, right, because we believe in the same mission in a different way, because Tether, of course, is centralized and relies on the banking system. But actually, with both Bitcoin and Tether, we are using all our, all our power, energy, mental energy, all our resources to trying to give away to especially emerging markets, developing countries, to save money, to combat inflation, to protect their wealth, right? To give a meaning to all the work they are putting through the entire year, and making sure that at the end of the year they don't have less money than the at the beginning of the year. And of course, Bitcoin is volatile, so that's the reason that for certain aspects, Tether is actually even used more in emerging markets rather than Bitcoin itself. I'm not saying this with pleasure, right? Because Tether is a dollar, and of course we are always looking for a hyper Bitcoinization of the world, but as a transition mechanism, as a way that is more, as a solution that is more understood by people, Tether is a great asset. It's a great utility for them, because they understand more the dollar because they're used to, rather than Bitcoin for the moment.
So I guess my natural follow-up question for that would be, so would you say that that Tether, or at least Bitcoin, is a political statement? Because it is, used, you brought up the fact that Bitcoin was created after the financial crash of 2008. So is this an inherently political idea, or is there, I think part of the issue that a lot of people have when they view crypto is they view it as a lot of people who are trying to sell, cartoon images and make millions of dollars. But from my experience at places like Bitcoin Magazine, it's a very political anti-government feeling. And I know in the past you've expressed that you're interested in government regulation, but what exactly is it about crypto that is its unique identifier? Is it a political statement? Is it a means to make money? Is it a means for self-sovereignty? What would you say it is?
It's everything that you said, right? So that's the beauty of Bitcoin. So everyone can use Bitcoin as a currency, and is a technology and as currency. So in different parts of the world, Bitcoin has different meanings. Depends on the user. It's how you would define Bitcoin is exactly peer-to-peer cash system, right? Is peer-to-peer money. So where peer is a person, right? So it's not, it could be a computer, can be a person. And that person has his own needs. And it doesn't matter what the other peer in the peer-to-peer equation wants or believes. Doesn't matter, right? So it is, for me, is a political statement. For me, is a way to preserve your own wealth and to have full control over your own wealth. And also, to me, is a beautiful technology. And maybe when I transact in Bitcoin, on the other side, I believe I will do a transaction with a person that instead for that person, Bitcoin is just a settlement currency or a speculative currency. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what Bitcoin is for me, not for the other part of the equation. And that's what I like, because then, everyone is free in the Bitcoin world. There is nothing more beautiful than that. And, it for me is, I think in the last week, I use a term, right? Well, I'm a big rock fan, and I used the term, or definition. Bitcoin is rage against the system in a way, because it is.
Yeah.
It started, in 2008 as a response to the financial crisis. So it is rage against the system. People are fed up by the system where they always lose and the house always wins. Right? Look at people living in Argentina. They cannot keep money in their banks. The black market is insane. And even if you want to buy as an Argentina dollars through your bank account, you can only buy $200 per month. So the capital control are worrying, and it's not a way to live your life, right? So people need alternatives, and Bitcoin is that alternative.
Yeah, and so kind of on that note, I know that you worked in financial services prior to working at Tether. The value that stablecoins and Bitcoin provide for the financial services system.
So I think that the blockchain as a technological solution is a great solution. So actually, I was the first at least public person that was advocating for an interbanking settlement system based on blockchain rather than a set of random computers that have all different protocols today. So having worked in the traditional finance, I was subject to, my day was a living hell. Every single day, I had to reconcile data from 10 different banks that were using 10 different protocols, 10 different formats. And then you had the training venues, you have the custodians, everything was always different and always problematic. The beauty of blockchain is and specifically the Bitcoin blockchain, that is the most secure one, is everyone is looking at the very same data, right? There is no way that if you are in sync with your node, you are looking at a different data set than others, right? So that's how it should be also in traditional finance. The cost reduction of maintaining this rubber band technological infrastructure for all the interbanking settlement systems is insanely high. You could cut it by 99% if you would use a blockchain. And to me, that is actually a CBDC, right? So there is a lot of discussions around the concept of a CBDC. And to me, people, first of all, governments will never issue on Ethereum, will never issue on Lightning, will never take the risk, right? So they will never want to know that, the protocol can change under their feet without them knowing or having the full decision. So there is no way that that the governments will put their CBDC on a public blockchain. And so for that, there is Tether, right? There are publicly or privately issued stablecoins. But for me, it's also extremely difficult for this reason that CBDCs will be used as actual day-to-day life money for people, right? So I still believe that blockchains could help the banking system, as I said, improving the interbanking settlement system. And for all the rest, public blockchains and specifically Bitcoin will be the money, the internet money. And keep in mind, and if you have a few minutes for which I will use to digress a little bit, I believe that in the future, in the next 5, 10 to 15 years, we are going to see the artificial intelligence. Of course, there will be a big push on artificial intelligence. We are seeing that with chat GPT. And also, we are going to see robotics. This morning, I was looking at the latest video of Boston Dynamics. Imagine the combination between robots and artificial intelligence is something that in 10 years, 14 years ago was born the iPhone, right? In 14 years, the evolution of tech has been insane. Imagine what can happen in the 14 years with everything that we know today, we are talking today, is born within the last 12 to 14 years. So in 14 years, we'll have an insane evolution of tech that will mean IoT, artificial intelligence, and robotics. And so it means that more and more robots will use the Bitcoin, that is Lightning Network or any other Lightning-enabled protocol, in order to move value quickly without tens of intermediaries. Doesn't make sense, right? So machine-to-machine payments will be done through blockchains and Lightning channels. There is no other way around. If you are technologists, if you are a developer, if you really understand development inside out, you can see you see that is the only way. Not philosophically, not for any reasons, purely technologically. So to me, there is no other future than that. Sorry.
How do you pitch people? Like, I know Jamie Dimon just actually once again this week said that Bitcoin is just a giant scam or a Ponzi, and people have that sentiment. How do you pitch a guy like Jamie Dimon what you just said, that Bitcoin does provide value and Tether does provide value?
Well, I guess he's in Davos probably. So I mean, there are people that you can pitch to, and people that for their own personal incentives reasons, they will never understand. They will never understand because they don't want to understand, or they don't care to understand, or they are afraid to understand, because that could be extremely detrimental to their business model. Many people don't want to live in a world, people that are coming from the traditional financial system, that they currently have a strong grip on other people's money. They don't want this to become a reality. They don't want Bitcoin to have success. They want to ensure their dominance for the next generations. So I can see why I'm not offended by him, or I think that Bitcoin community shouldn't be offended by Jamie saying that Bitcoin is a scam, right? We are saying the same thing about what the banking industry has done so often, right? So I think everything is every opinion is legitimate. I think only the future will tell. We'll hold ourselves accountable for what we have built.
And on that note, there are some people who are in politics or in government who are fans of crypto and Bitcoin. People like the mayor of Miami, people like the Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, and you have these places where there are pro crypto, pro Bitcoin people. What are the things they do to be useful for the community, and what can governments who want to model themselves and be allies of the community do in order to work with the community instead of work on the side or against the community?
Well, I think that the example that Bukele created in El Salvador, I think, is a really illuminated example. Is a move that created a lot of contrast in both the political world, the global political world, and financial world. Is a move that scared many people in both the political and financial world. is a move that has been extremely brave, as any countries, especially the Central and South American countries. The El Salvador was borrowing money from the IMF, and the move that he did, accepting Bitcoin, was actually a bold move. But I'm certain that I'm seeing myself that this move is already paying out, because I know many people that are there, they are investing, they are building, they are creating jobs, new opportunities. And that's something that only a visionary, and something that only someone that understands that there is an important first mover advantage can capitalize on.
Yeah.
And sorry, just to say, I mean, there is a big difference with, I understand that also the mayor of Miami is excited about cryptos, but there is a fundamental difference, right? So issuing a token or adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender, they are completely two worlds, right? So one is, I feel like, a little bit more speculative, that is Miami approach, rather than fundamental and philosophical, that is what El Salvador did.
And then what about, you mentioned you're Italian and you have an accent. I know a lot of football teams and soccer teams are releasing, their own cryptocurrencies. Do you think something like that should be viewed as a security, or do you think something like that should be, is that a positive aspect of the crypto ecosystem or a negative aspect? All these people tokenizing their assets instead of, going through the traditional securities process.
Man, you're opening a can of worms here, but my two cents is that is not a great signal, in my opinion. So first of all, there is a difference. So if you want to be a shareholder, if you issue a security for which people can buy shares of your company through a digital asset, that's great. But if you issue a token that allows to holders to choose the song that will be played in the football stadium,
I
think, and there is a huge speculative price model, I think that is extremely problematic.
How do you view tokens rather than these very prominent tokens that are speculative rather than real world assets like Bitcoin or stable coins?
So personally, I'm against the pre-mine aspect. I think that in order for a token to have value, and a clear value, I'm a big fan of proof of work. I'm a big fan of proof of work because it's a way to constantly prove that you are putting effort in keeping the currency secure. That's why I really like Bitcoin. Instead, if you issue a token that has a lot of pre-mine and use that money to build the technology, I think that's extremely, unfair for, in a certain sense, and possibly could create issues with regulators. And we are seeing that with the SEC looking more closely at cryptos nowadays. And the common line among everyone is that Bitcoin is a commodity, and Bitcoin should not be regulated as a security, while they are not saying the same thing for the rest of the currencies.
And what would you, just kind of zooming out, you mentioned it a little bit with, robotics and AI and all of these other innovations, but what would you see as a positive outcome for crypto and for stablecoins and for Bitcoin in the next 10 to 15 years?
I think that the positive outcome for Bitcoin and stablecoins is that they will be used as a way to disintermediate from all the intermediaries that are completely useless that we are seeing today. Is a way to reduce the cost of transactions, is a way to make transactions more transparent, is a way to make everything more real time. You can have light bulbs paying for their own electricity. You can have self-driving cars that are refueling and they are paying directly with Bitcoin or Tether at the for the electricity that they consume. You can have robots paying for groceries that they are buying on behalf of their masters, and that should only happen in Bitcoin and stablecoins. There is no reason for a robot to have a bank account, right? So it doesn't make sense, but there is already internet money. and that is Bitcoin and Tether.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for your time.